Right. All right. Welcome to another episode of Two Moms Save the World, a podcast where Uzma and I talk about societal norms and how we want you to break them. So, Uzma, I'd love to hear
Yes.
how your morning's going today.
Well, my morning
How your
is
morning
going,
went.
yes. My morning is going okay so far. Had a couple of things to do and I got up a little late, but I'm really excited because we haven't recorded for a couple of weeks. So this is really exciting to have our awesome guest and also to be with you. So this morning, actually, I grounded after a long time.
Oh, that's awesome.
I didn't post or anything like that. I've been a little bit off social media, but that's a whole nother story that you and I will talk about on one of our podcasts. Right?
Yes, we
Exactly.
do.
So how was your morning?
My morning was really, so I unexpectedly am alone in my house. I didn't know that was going to happen. I knew my husband was going, he went on like a 2-day backpacking trip into the mountains. And yesterday, got my haircut, came home, and my son's like trying to pack all his stuff into a backpack. And I'm like, where are you going? He's like, camping for 2 days. It's not like I haven't been talking about this forever. I'm like, this is the first time heard that you're going camping. And we bought him a really nice big Osprey backpack that I'm like, why aren't you using your Osprey backpack? He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Right.
Communication, Kate. The
Oh
boys
my,
never tell anything. They never tell you anything.
no, it's just my 18-year-old son. And when I went into the garage and got he's like, I didn't know that was mine. I'm like, I've only been talking about it I think we bought it from a year ago. So it's just, miscommunications. So I'm alone. My husband and my son are both doing outdoorsy things. So I am alone in my house, which I always really enjoy.
Yeah.
I got up, walked my dogs, just laid in bed and read and drank coffee all morning.
That sounds like an awesome morning.
Yes.
So you like to
yes.
be alone. You don't mind having an empty house.
No, not even a little bit. There was a time where I would be sad that nobody was I have 2 dogs too. So they keep me going. They'll come and be like, hey, let's go for a walk. So I feel like I do have some kind of interaction.
Okay. That's awesome.
Yes.
So today we have an awesome guest. I've known her for about 25 years. Did you know that?
Is that right?
Yes, we have daughters who are the same age. And when I lived in St. Louis, we were friends, like around the time we both just got married.
Oh,
you didn't know that, did you?
I didn't know that. This is what I love about you, Uzma. You have things that that I just don't know about you, and I get to learn them every single time we podcast. So it's amazing.
Yeah, so I'm going to introduce our guest, and then as she's talking, I have a couple of things I want to let you know about her that you guys will be like, what? This is amazing. She doesn't know I'm going to say this either, but anyway. Cool. She's a really cool person. But anyway, so I'm going to introduce Azra, who is a lawyer, and I'll let you, Azra, talk a little bit about yourself and introduce yourself so people know who you are and what you do as well. So welcome.
Oh, thank you, Uzma. Thank you, Uzma and Kate, for having me on your podcast. It's great to see women empowering other women. So my name is Azra Ahmed, also known as Azra. I anglicized my name to make it easier for certain individuals to say. But anyways, I'm also known as Azra. But Azra is how you pronounce my name. But anyway, so I've been in private practice for about 10 years. I became an attorney later in life. I was a speech language pathologist before. And then, I was just like, oh, I want to go to law school. And I think once I said that or made it public, I had to follow through. So, so I took the LSAT, and I was surprised I got in. So I was like, oh my gosh, I have to go in and do law school now. So, so I have a private practice. I recently hired an associate 2 years ago. My practice focuses on estate planning, elder law, personal injury, and traffic. But the estate planning and elder law is my bread and butter. I have 3 children. Thankfully, they're all considered adults now, which is exciting. And they're similar to Uzma's children's ages, which is
Yeah.
nice. So we both, Uzma and I, were very young mothers.
Yeah.
And people are shocked when we tell them that we have these children that are so old.
Yeah.
I guess there is an advantage of being a young mother. I think, now that we're a little older, we can really enjoy life.
Yeah, that's really true. Because now, I feel like when I was young, like you, we were just taking care of the kids while people our ages are doing other things. Now that they're older, we have that time and we're still young enough to do it. So Azra, I want to know, what is estate planning and why is it important for women to do it and know about it? Because it's usually a male thing, like the husbands do it.
Yeah.
Right. So statistically, men die before women. Right.
Right.
And then when your husband dies, the caretaker, the financial breadwinner, and you as a wife and mother don't know what's going on with the finances or don't know what your assets are, it's like the rug is literally pulled under your feet. And it's when that SHIT hits the fan.
Oh, you can say shit on our podcast.
Okay. It's when it's when a certain thing hits the fan.
Yeah.
So, you're in crisis mode. Recently in our community, actually, this happened last week. A man in his 40s died suddenly of a heart attack. And then they're raising money for the mother. I don't know what the specifics are, but I was like thinking, oh my God, I hope to God he had an estate plan. So
Right.
a lot of people think that just because you're married to someone, you automatically get that person's assets.
Mm.
So it's how the assets are titled. Like, for example, a house. It's important to have a house titled both in husband and wife's name with right of survivorship.
Right.
If you don't have that right of survivorship, the wife does not get that property and it has to go through probate. Bank accounts as well. If your husband had a bank account on which you were not on and you didn't have a payable or death on that account, or you didn't have a trust, then that account on your husband's death has to go through this court process called probate. So a lot of people think automatically, oh, my wife is going to get everything. I don't have to worry. She's going to get everything. But that's not the case. You would have to go through the court process. And especially if you've had a second marriage and you've had children from a previous marriage, that's when things get really complicated. You really need your husband, if he does have children from a prior marriage, really needs to be thoughtful about how he constructs his estate plan. And you as his wife really need to get on him to create an estate plan so there's not conflict that happens after, your husband's death. I see it all the time.
Let me ask a question, because my husband's business account, I went and got on at least a signer on his business account. So if anything did happen to him, I had control of that account. But why do you think women are, because I feel like women are afraid to broach the subject with their husbands, or they're like, oh, my husband just has it all under control. So like, what can you say to kind of, tell women to empower themselves to take more control of that? Why are women so afraid of it?
Good question.
Well, there's news story after news story. Because of COVID, there have been instances where both parents died. If you have minor children, you want to make sure those minor children are protected. Our gut instinct is to protect our children and, to protect ourselves. And estate planning is an act of love. It's the best gift that you can give your family. It's important to sit down and talk about it. It's important to talk about disability. I think being incapacitated, being disabled is more concerning than death. For
Sure.
example, if something did happen to your husband and he could not take care of his affairs, and he did not have a power of attorney beforehand, you would have to go to court to get conservatorship and guardianship. And that's the last thing you want, because then everything becomes so public.
Right.
So it's not just about death. I mean, we think that we're going to live forever and we're not going to get sick, but it happens. Because I think COVID is something that we could bring up. There have been people that I know who've been hospitalized for long periods of time on the vent. And, if the wife didn't have a power of attorney, she couldn't handle her husband's affairs.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it is a very uncomfortable conversation. It's
Yes.
a conversation that has to be had. I mean, if there's a news item, there's always things on the news about people dying and about their estate. That's a good way to broach the topic.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
I have a question that's like, we're always talking about the husband and his estate, but there are a lot of women who are on their own and they're working, or they make more money than their husband. Do they need to do something? Or let's talk about women having their own, estate planning. Why are we dependent on the husband? It's joint if you're married,
Right. So usually, if partners come in, husband and wife or partners, I recommend a joint trust.
Okay.
So the trust specifies what would happen in times of incapacity and what would happen when one spouse dies, and then upon the second spouse's death. Yeah, that's really important. The wife needs to, figure out where her assets will be going upon her death as well. It's a joint thing.
Okay.
So, what I would love to talk about, because I actually have all this stuff. We got an attorney years ago, and he's like, before I do any more work for you guys, we need to sit down and get this taken care of. So he brought somebody in to take care of that for all of us, which I thought was such a blessing, because it's something that is very, very daunting to sit and go through. So to have somebody be like, no, you're going to do this right now, is really, I'm grateful to him for that. But to kind of put people at a little bit of ease, what are the steps that you recommend? How can you ease somebody a little bit more into having this conversation and going down the road? When you have a client come to you, how are you able to put people at ease in this process?
Well, I just tell them that, this is a gift that you're giving your family. It's an act of love. This will avoid future conflict. I mean, the last thing parents want is for their children to be fighting after they're gone. And you see a lot of brothers and sisters who don't ever talk to each other again after the parents died.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fighting that goes on because there wasn't an estate plan in place. It's just, wouldn't it be really sad if your kids never communicated with each other, didn't want to be in each other's lives? You spent your whole life raising them to love each other, but then at the end of the day, you failed to establish an estate plan that would keep that family harmony.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a great way to put it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and everybody has different family dynamics. You might have a child who struggles with substance abuse, and the last thing you want to do is to leave that child. If you don't have an estate plan in place, say you had 3 kids, right? Both parents are gone, that child with substance abuse would get 1/3 of your assets. Do you want that to happen? What's that child going to do as substance abuse with that money? So you want to protect your kids as well, from predators, from creditors, and from themselves. And there are things that you can do in your estate plan to protect them.
Yeah. I like that.
Exactly. I like that a lot.
I like how you say that it's a gift. Oh God, so let me tell you this crazy story. I was sitting at a brewery, this is a couple months ago, and this wife, and it was a husband and wife, and they had just both second marriages for both of them. And I, through our conversation, I could tell the wife had no idea. The husband ran his own business, about the husband's finances. And I'm not going to get into the details because it was quite hairy, but they had been drinking a lot and some things came up. And I just saw her jaw drop open because she had no idea he was giving us information about his business, some illegal activities he was imbibing in, that that she was just shocked by. And at that moment, God, I felt so bad for that woman. But I feel like there are a lot of women in that space of, not that your husband's doing illegal business activities, not that at all, but just not knowing what each other is up to per se, not only the husband, but the wife. So being able to have these open conversations about, like, I hear all the time, wives not knowing how much money their husband makes or vice versa. So I do think it's an important conversation to be had.
Yeah, I think in a lot of families, the role just becomes the mother's a caretaker,
Yes.
and the husband becomes the breadwinner. And then they're each doing their own separate activity, and they never really talk about it, because as long as the kids are being fed, they're going to school, their house is being paid, the car is being paid, the women are just like, okay, this is fine.
Everything's fine until it's not.
Exactly.
Yes.
Everything's fine until something really bad happens.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it's like, I don't even know where the assets are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think sometimes the man gets so used to being in control that when the women starts asking and prying, then conflict also occurs. Why are you asking me now? You never asked me before.
Right.
And so these are conversations that have to be,
that have to be had. Yeah.
Exactly. So Azra, let me ask you, have you always in your relationship, or was it after you became a lawyer, been the financial one in yours?
Oh, I've always been taking care of the finances. Actually, this morning I was thinking I'm getting tired of it.
Just this morning.
It's a lot.
It is. I take care of the finances in my house. So yeah, I totally get that, because sometimes my husband's like, he is not aware of where all our money is and what's going on. So
yeah. So it's important, like when you do a comprehensive estate plan, you write down where your assets are. So your loved ones don't have to play detective when you're gone. That's the worst thing, because you don't know what your loved one has. So in a very comprehensive estate plan, there's a process of retitling things to a trust, or making sure that you have a record of everything you own.
Yeah. This is so true.
Yeah. So tell us, like, tell us like a real story about somebody maybe who you worked with. You don't have to say any names. Who like a good story, like, of somebody that you worked with that you were able to maybe that was a little scared of the process and how things turned out. And I keep coming back to the fear, because I think there's so much fear around this. I'm trying to destigmatize the fear about estate planning and knowing your assets.
I don't think people are fearful when they come in.
Oh no?
I think no, they're not. They're just, they're worried about their minor children, especially when COVID hit.
Yeah.
Like I had a lot of physicians coming in. They were like, I think COVID really motivated people to get this done.
Right.
Because there was so much fear of dying and becoming incapacitated.
Well, maybe that's the fear that I think comes up, is we don't want to talk about that, right? The fact that I might die someday, the fact that I might become incapacitated. I think that's where fear comes up a lot, that we just don't want to have that conversation.
But I also think fear is also, you get to this and you have to open up all your financial stuff. So it might be fear of letting your spouse see everything that you've been doing if you aren't sharing it, or
Right.
the other person, fear of finding out exactly what's happening.
Right.
Right. So that also could be the fear too.
Yeah. Like
Having to
knowing
lay
the
everything
whole
out and not,
picture.
yeah, exactly. And be honest and be like, oh, well, we do have a lot of assets, or actually, honey, we don't have as many as you thought we did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it's the time commitment. They're like, we don't have time. It's a lot of work. And then there is also conflict when you're choosing key people. For example,
Oh yeah.
individuals
that.
who have minor children.
Yeah.
So there's conflict, like who will be the guard? And I'm like, why are you fighting over this? You know, the likelihood of both parents dying is slim. So, or like, who will be the remote contingent beneficiary? Like if everyone in your immediate family dies, who will get the assets? So there's argument over that. I'm like, it's very unlikely to happen. Let's not argue about that.
I got to tell you, I remember that conversation with my husband, like with the estate planner, and she's like, okay, so if both of you die, your children are going to go too. And Mike rattled off a name, and I was like, hell no.
Yeah.
I do remember that.
Yeah,
they're both adults now, so it's fine.
We had that conversation too. I was like, my brother. He's like, no, my brother. I'm like, no, my brother. Your brother's too old. My brother's this, you know. So we had that
I mean, a lot of times
too.
That's what delays the process, is not having a consensus as to who we're choosing as a guardian, as a trustee, as a personal representative, successor, healthcare, power of attorney, you know, those kinds of things. So can I tell you what a comprehensive estate plan looks like?
I was about to ask you. Yes, please go ahead.
I was going to as well. What does a comprehensive estate plan look like?
Okay, so there are certain documents that every responsible adult should have. The first thing that I think is extremely important, no matter how little money you have, is the healthcare power of attorney. So what the healthcare power of attorney is your agent or the point person who would make medical decisions on your behalf if you were unable to. Like, for example, you're getting surgery and you're under anesthesia and the doctor has to make a quick medical decision. Who is the person that doctor will ask?
Is that similar to a living will?
No, that's a separate document. So I'll touch upon that later. Okay. So the healthcare power of attorney is your agent, is your voice when you're unable to make medical decisions. A companion document along with the healthcare power of attorney is the healthcare directive, also known as the living will, also known as advanced medical directive. So what that document is, it expresses your wishes if you are in a persistent vegetative state and there's no hope for recovery. It states what treatments you want withheld. So it's very specific. For example, do you want artificial nutrition and hydration withheld? Do you want the ventilator, artificial respiration withheld, antibiotics? And there are several other things on that list. So you have to proactively state, I want this withheld if I am in a persistent vegetative state and there's no hope for recovery.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so a lot of times I have individuals who don't want to fill that out and they say, I just want my healthcare power of attorney to make those decisions at that time.
Wow, and how do you feel about that? Because I feel like that's putting a lot of pressure on somebody to make those decisions for you.
Which is fine. I have a lot of physician clients, like the wife might not be a physician. She'll like, just let my husband decide. So everybody's different.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I mean, I know I want an advanced healthcare directive. I know I don't want to be kept alive if I'm in a persistent vegetative state.
Let me tell you, I spent 4 hours in the emergency room this past weekend. Talk about that later. But they were giving me hydration And the thing I don't think people realize either is like what all that entails, right? Like they're giving me hydration. I couldn't stay warm because the hydration they give you, they don't warm that stuff up, right? It's cold and it's incredibly uncomfortable. So, and I know we don't want to go there. We don't want to think about all this stuff, but really your comfort is super important in these times. And they were going to give me I think a 4th or 5th bag. And I was like, can I decline? And they're like, you can decline any of this. And I'm like, okay, I do not want that. I think I'm okay to go home. I have very low blood pressure. And so we don't consider that as well. Like what, think about yourself in that state and the comfort of yourself as well, because having all those procedures done is really maybe not so comfortable for you as well.
Right. And especially for our elderly clients, it's really important. You can put language in your healthcare document as to what you want, especially for end of life. Do you want to die at home, or do you want to live, die in a hospital? That is your right. You don't have to die in a hospital. If you, you have the right to die in your own home. So the healthcare power of attorney and healthcare directive can be as specific as you want it. And you can add language to it, directing your loved ones to what kind of care you want.
I like that we're having this conversation too, because when I was sitting in that hospital, I did not know per se that I could decline things, right? And I feel that that's something just us as a society don't often understand, that it is we are able to say no to some things that maybe we don't consider that we can, right? You always do have a choice. Well,
yeah, I mean, you have a patient's bill of rights.
Yes.
You have rights. Yeah.
Yes.
And I guess when you're sick, you don't think about it, right? You're in this vulnerable position.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you have to advocate for yourself, which is important. So so that's the healthcare element of estate planning. The next document that's extremely important is the durable power of attorney, which takes care of financial and legal matters. If you were incapacitated, detained, or busy, and you wanted, your agent, your partner to take care of things on your behalf.
Gotcha.
So, and then there's 2 types of power of attorneys. One is springing and one is standing, and you can choose which one you want. Springing only comes into action if you are incapacitated, detained, or some triggering event. Standing power of attorney comes into action the second you sign the document. So people ask me, oh, which one should I get? I think it depends on your relationship with the agent or with your spouse. If you have a trusting relationship, you can do a standing power of attorney. If you don't, I don't recommend you do a standing power of attorney, because he could or she could sell the house, sell the stocks, and without you knowing it, because you basically signed away
your right, your power.
Your power. So it's a lot of attorneys don't tell you that there are 2 kinds. So it's important to be educated.
Yeah. So you tell most people to do standing then?
No, I tell them it depends on your relationship and what you feel comfortable with. The standing is easier, especially for my elderly clients, because then you don't have to get this doctor's note that says that this person's incapacitated. Now you have the right to conduct business on his or her behalf.
Okay.
Standing is like the second you signed it, you give that other person power.
I think it's important to know these things too, in case you have a spouse that comes to you that says, hey, I need you to sign this standing power of attorney, right? Why? Ask the questions. Why is this happening? Yeah,
exactly.
All right.
Right. Yeah. Next, a will. Everybody needs a will, but one thing that people do not know is that a will goes through probate. Right. In the state of Missouri and Illinois. Those are the 2 states that I am licensed in. I don't know about the other states, but generally a will goes through probate. It's very public. It's published. 2 times. Basically, when it's published, the court is saying, John Smith died. If John Smith owes money, come to court. So basically, the creditors get paid first before your heirs have access to any money. So the whole point of estate planning is to try to avoid probate. And there are ways that you can avoid probate through a will-based plan. But what I recommend is a trust. And a trust is very popular in both Missouri and Illinois. So what I think of a trust, and a lot of people are like, oh, I don't need a trust. I'm not rich.
I have a trust,
don't have
yeah.
money.
You need a trust.
But you don't have to be rich to have a trust. So
No.
what a trust is a bucket. And in this bucket are all your assets, like your accounts, your house, whatever you own. And then when you pass away, this bucket seamlessly goes to your trustee who takes care of your affairs. So if I have a husband and wife, when husband and wife are both alive and well, they both can do anything with the assets that are in the bucket, like they're doing now. One spouse dies, the other spouse takes care of the bucket. Second spouse dies, then the trustee distributes the assets according to the instructions that are listed in the trust.
Nice.
Okay, so you're saying to do a trust over a will?
No,
You
will with a
always
trust.
have to have a will when you have a trust, because people fail to sometimes title their assets to the trust, or they leave something out of the trust. Then through the will, it can get back into the trust. Does that make sense? Or
Yeah,
it's confusing?
that makes
Yes, it does. Okay.
It's
yeah.
called a pour over will. And in Missouri, if you have minor children, it's through the will the guardian is named for those minor children. But most often you can avoid probate if you retitle everything appropriately or have beneficiary designations on everything. But you always need a will.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Is there a next step?
That's about it. Those are all the documents. Oh, a trust allows you to structure distributions. If you have children, you don't have to give them everything at the age of 18. You could put like triggering events. Once you graduate college, you get this much. At age 30, you get this much. That way it protects the money for them. If there's a divorce, it protects it.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me ask you this. Is getting a trust or an estate planning, is that expensive? If people are wondering costs.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Well, it depends. Every attorney has their own price point. I know my firm, a will-based plan is less expensive than a trust-based plan. And then there's, other things in a trust that you can put, like if you have a special needs child, you have to do, special needs planning for that child. So usually the cost can run anywhere between, for a will or trust-based plan, 1,000 up to, like a typical trust-based plan can be $2,800 or $3,000. It depends on the attorney and it depends on your family's situation.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
There's a lot you can do with a trust. The more you put in it, the more the cost is. And it depends on your community. I know in California, a trust-based plan begins at $5,000. In the Midwest, in the Midwest, it's
expensive in
less.
California.
Yeah, everything is expensive in
Yeah.
California. So here I know the range, like for a typical estate plan for a family with children can run anywhere between $2,800 to $4,000.
Gotcha.
I mean, there's a range. It depends on your attorney.
Awesome. This is such good information. Like
It
I
is
wrote
really
all
good
the points
information.
down. I mean, there's so many women who need to hear this, but they don't know where to get the information from. They don't know what to do.
Right.
So I hope this empowers a lot of you who are listening to, find out, ask the questions, because this is so important. Like Azra said, it's a gift.
And
But
I feel
also,
it's good energetic alignment too, right? To know what's going on in your life as far as your assets and where everything, where getting everything organized.
Yeah. Well, I was watching on YouTube and they were talking about how the men and the women's brain are different when it comes to this, because men are always risk takers and doing things. And if the woman has the financials, you will always have a happier marriage, because if she's satisfied and she knows what's going on, then she feels comfortable and safe. So she's better with you.
Yeah. Women want stability and safety. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but the thing that I wanted to bring up about Azra was that she had said she was a speech pathologist and later in life went into law. What's amazing about her is that she went back to law with 3 kids in elementary school.
Wow.
So, she is amazing. And it shows you that if you want to do something and you want to be passionate about something, you can do it. I mean, having 3 kids in elementary school with the activities and the day-to-day stuff and still being able to go to law school is amazing.
It is quite amazing.
She's also an example of that. You can change your career, you can do stuff. So Azra, that's amazing. I don't know how you did it. I remember you telling us that you studied with the kids when they were doing homework. You would do homework too.
Yeah, and actually I even took them to a class.
Oh, you did?
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was a family law class. We were talking about divorce, cool. I remember.
I think that's so cool. And I think being able to bring your children into something like that empowers them as well, right? It makes that whole world a little less scary for them.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
So with a lot of women, when they say, oh, I'm too old, I don't think you're ever too old to do anything.
Unless you're dead. That's when you're too old.
Yeah.
That's when, you expired, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you're never too old to do anything. It's just putting your mind to it. I think, especially when you're an empty nester, that is the best time to blossom.
Yeah.
Because you can fully focus on, your true passion, or find your passion and make an impact on your community.
Yeah. So tell me, what was your mindset while you were doing it? Because, you didn't need to become a lawyer. You were fine in your lifestyle and, what motivated you and how did you keep on going without, so many moms think, oh, when the kids get older, or I've got so much responsibility, I don't want to be doing something else. It's just another thing on my plate. What kept you motivated to do this?
And I think I always wanted to be a lawyer, and I thought if I don't do it now, I don't want to be later in life, would have, could have, should have. I don't want to be that person who said I could have. And I mean, like today, if I didn't go to law school, I would have been saying, oh, I could have, but I didn't.
Right.
Love that.
I love that too.
So I don't want to be could have, would have, should have. I like that Nike's little logo, just do it. I think sometimes as women, we overthink things. I think we just have to do it. And it happens.
Do. And we're so concerned about what people are going to say about, our decisions. I mean, women it just is what it is. Women are just put under a microscope constantly. And I think we get concerned about what people are going to think about us, what our family is going to think about us. So, yeah. So you're an inspiration.
Right. I mean, people respect you. I mean,
they do. And I think that's the thing, right? Like that is how you can help empower women around you, just by doing it. Because here you are, you didn't care what people thought about you. You didn't care that there were probably moms whispering under their breath, God, maybe she should commit more time to her family. Because I'm sure there were people saying that, right? And a lot of times I think it's those people who are resentful that they're not capable of stepping up to do what they want to do as well, right? There's that resentment, that jealousy per se. So you're being a good role model, Azra.
Oh, thank you. That's sweet.
Yeah. So any last tips or anything you'd like to say about estate planning or women?
Well, to motivate people, I thought if you live in Illinois or Missouri, I'll give you a 10% discount on your total estate plan if you call me
and say you heard us on this podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So so my website is midamericalaw.com.
And we'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they could just reach me, you know, through the website, our phone number and our emails on there. They could message us.
Fantastic.
So a lot of times we have appointments via Zoom with our clients. It's just that last meeting. If they're not close by, we would have to arrange for a notary and 2 witnesses when they execute the documents.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
And you can just sleep better once you have an estate plan in place.
This
Yes.
is true. So
Because,
this is
you
going to
know-
be on YouTube and it's going to be on our podcast.
Yes.
A little bit later, but
Yeah.
YouTube.
YouTube today.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Oh, perfect. I'll
Yeah, I'll
share
throw it
it.
up on YouTube and I'll
Yeah,
send you the link.
exactly. Just all we need you to do is just in the messenger or just email one of us your information so we can put it on the bottom of the show notes where
Yeah.
how they
Okay.
can reach you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh,
today,
you're
Azra.
welcome.
This was so
I
great.
had a great
Great.
time talking to you guys. And then maybe we could do one more on elder law.
That would be
I
amazing.
would love that. Yes, we're doing a season 2, so we'll have you
Especially
back
with
on
all of
season
our
2.
parents getting older, let me tell
Yes.
you. Like,
Yeah,
I know I'm not allowed to strangle them. Like, what are my options?
yeah, that would be
Yes,
something.
that's a difficult conversation to be had.
Yes.
One
So
is
thank
with
you
your
for doing this.
spouse and the other one is with your
Your
parents.
parents.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think your parents is a little harder.
I
Yes,
agree.
I agree.
Thanks so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me,
Yep.
Kate and Uzma. You guys have a
Okay.
great day.
You
All right,
too.
bye.
Bye.